son is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' Is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. This week we head to Martinsville for the STP 500, where they'll go 500 laps around this half-mile paperclip. Stages are at laps 130, lap 260, and then they'll go the final 240 laps to the finish. As you guys can see, I'm rolling solo again this week. Liehr wanted to be here and was scheduled to be here, but he had a family emergency come up. I would just ask that all you guys that are loyal viewers keep Liehr and his family in your thoughts and prayers. Don't worry though, guys, Liehr will be back next week. So in the meantime, I'm going to do the only thing that I can do for filling in for him. Your fun fact of the week. Your fun fact this week is that although Martin Truex Jr. isn't known for short track racing, and even though he's failed to crack the winner's column here at Martinsville, in his last 3 finishes, he finished 2nd, 4th, and 3rd. There will be more on Truex coming up just a little later. The weather should be cloudy with temps in the 60s when we go racing at 2 p.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1. Note the network switch this week, kids. Before we get into the plays this week, first there are some just amazing paint schemes that are straight up fire. Almirola's Shazam car is one of my all-time favorite race car designs. You guys have to check it out. It is amazing. And that car was super fast in that awesome new wrap. We also have Truex's new Sirius radio car. It looks good. Harvick's Mobil 1 car has a little bit of a tweak to its design. It looks fire this week. McDowell is in a A&W root beer car, and it is super sweet. And then you have Newman's Acorn car, which is a really neat green to like dark green fade design. It is sweet. And then, of course, those of us that are a little bit more old school, Blaney is driving the Lipman's Wonder Mop car, and it actually looks pretty sick this week with a nice green front end fading into the other colors. It is gorgeous as well. Now that I'm done fawning over the new car design, the new car wrap designs, there's some really cool cars on track for a change this week. We should start by talking about the track dominator here, and that is Kyle Rowdy Busch, who is $13,000, the most expensive driver you can purchase this week, but he has crushed this track. Like, he's been required to have rostered to have a winning lineup 5 of the last 7 races here at Martinsville, with finishes of 5th, 1st, 5th, 2nd, 1st, 2nd, and 4th. He starts 14th. The last time he started 14th, he led 184 laps here and won the race. Oh, and by the way, he was also 3rd in the 20-lap average charts from final practice. He's slightly off from the leaders. I think that this play is going to be the decision-making play in how you build lineups this week. Do you Rowdy or do you fade Rowdy? With him starting 14th, if he gets anywhere in the top 3 and leads any laps, he's going to be required to be on your lineups. But that $13,000 really hinders what you can do with your salary. Another place people will go instead of Kyle Busch is probably to his teammate, Martin Truex Jr., starting 9th in that 19 car. He's 11,900 and was the fastest car this week in 20 and 30 lap averages in the final practice. This car looked dialed in and really good, and they were not worried whatsoever about qualifying. They only wanted to practice in their race setup. With that said, they led the charts and still ended up qualifying 9th. I like Truex's play here. The problem comes is if you're going to try to roster Truex with Rowdy, the salaries get extremely tight. And we haven't even talked about Kevin Harvick yet, who's starting 4th and was 5th in the 20 laps averages and 2nd in the 30 lap averages. His teammates, Boyer, Almirola, and Suarez were all in the top 7 in 20 lap averages, and only Suarez was the only one of Stewart-Haas Racing that was not in the top 7 in 30 lap averages. In other words, Stewart-Haas Racing has the entire fleet of cars dialed in for this weekend, as well as the top 2 JGR cars, as I mentioned earlier. I like all of these cars. The problem is they're all super expensive, and you're going to have to pick and choose which ones you end up going with. Team Penske also looked really good, showing up in both the 20 lap and 30 lap average charts, including having all 3 members being on the 30 lap average chart. Guys, it's really tough this week when you boil down salary, because at Martinsville with the 500 laps, there's a premium on people that are leading laps and being the fastest car. So, which is usually the car out front. Trying to figure out who that's going to be in this field gets tough. We have Logano sitting on the pole, as I told you, with Team Penske, with his teammate Keselowski third. The really interesting Team Penske play that is going to be heavily owned is Blaney, back starting at 18th, who's also the cheapest at $9K. I'm not sure that Logano is going to lead that many laps, if any laps. I don't really have my focus there. I think it's easy that Harvick and a couple of these other guys at least catch him before the end of the first stage. But the first stage is 130 laps in and of itself, which is enough points to make Logano necessary as long as he doesn't fall backwards past 10th if he leads that whole or a significant chunk of that first segment. Now, if somebody else leads more laps like Rowdy Busch, it would make it to the point, plus his place differential, it would make it where a Logano play wouldn't be optimal necessarily, but it depends because there is a $1,700 difference between the two drivers, and that opportunity cost of $1,700 is going to matter on your lineup construction of what quality of driver you can get to replace. Like this race this weekend is exciting because it's a mathematics points game, and I really dig it. It's a shame that it has to be on the same weekend as the NCAA tournament, but oh well. I'll record the games and the race and be flipping back and forth, and between the two, I can go back and watch and won't miss any of the action. As I've already talked about, we have Amarola starting second, which is an interesting play at 8,700. We saw a couple races from Amarola last year where he started near the front and was able to go out and dominate by leading a bunch of laps and still having a good finish, even winning a couple of races last year. I think that's very possible again in this scenario. It might even be intriguing to try to fade the studs, but once again, you're literally fading track history and greatness by fading Rowdy. But man, it opens up so many fun things with your salary to do if you design a lineup around Amarola being one of your lead dominators, or Boyer, or even reaching down and taking Hamlin, which I know a lot of people aren't crazy about, but he starts 5th. He's got great track history here. He owns multiple clocks from winning at Martinsville. I just think that that's another route you can go. Is it the correct route? I'm not sure, but I think the right way to approach this track this week is to look at as many possibilities as possible with your lineups and then narrow down your faves from there, because there's just way too many cool possibilities with what we've seen on the 20 and 30 lap average charts. When you start getting below the main plays this week, and I really use the cutoff line as Boyer, other people are going to view the cutoff line as Chase Elliott, but being that Hendrick and Chase Elliott were nowhere on the 20 and 30 lap average charts, I want no piece of these Team Hendrick cars. They were also slow through the practices. They just don't look right, and I'm not impressed. And until they right the ship, I'm not going to waste my fantasy dollars and my real dollars playing them in fantasy lineups. I think that's just the smarter approach. Although Jimmy Johnson starting 12th is a little interesting and Bowman starting 17th, like those are interesting, but their times were reflective of that's where they're going to race, if not be backwards from those starting positions. The Eric Jones at 19th is an interesting play. Austin Dillon starting 30th is an interesting play in my opinion. I can't explain to you why they were so slow during qualifying. They shouldn't have been that slow, but once again, this is another car that couldn't find its way into the top of the consecutive 20 or 30 lap averages. And at a track like Martinsville, the premium is on cars that can go around the track a lot without having any time fall off. And if you haven't even practiced in the 20 lap average mark, odds are your car's not there. But 30th is just too juicy not to have a couple of pieces of. But that $7,300 price tag is hard to squeeze him in. Ryan Newman and Ricky Stenhouse. Stenhouse starts 25th and Newman starts 21st, but we have seen no speed whatsoever out of Roush Fenway Racing this weekend. So the Roush Fenway cars are interesting, but they haven't shown a lot of speed. The other option is another RCR car like Austin Dillon that showed speed in the first practice today when it was cooler, but not as much speed when the track warmed up, and then had no speed in qualifying in Daniel Hemrick. Starting 29th, that car should be a lot better than the other cars in that range, making him at 6,600 a very intriguing play for me this weekend. I think I'm on Daniel Hemrick. I don't want to own Chris Buescher starting 13th. I think that's too high, although we've seen this out of Buescher. If he can stay there in that range, in that 13th range, or even gain a couple positions at $6,500, he should pay off. The other value plays, they're all starting in that range that we've talked about previously, where they're right at the top of their projections for their times. As I told you, I love Michael McDowell's new scheme. It's interesting, but he's starting 24th, and that's been the high end where that car's been finishing as of late. Ty Dillon in the Germain Racing car had a great finish 2 weeks ago for people, finishing 15th, but last week started 16th and ended up finishing 27th. I don't think he's a play this week because they weren't showing the times as well, other than practice one, which was way colder once again. So I don't know what value plays you should really go with this weekend. It's a hodgepodge of craziness where I'm standing. Ross Chastain starting 31st is kind of interesting, but we're in those field filler guys, man, where it is a straight crapshoot. And I know some people will probably say that they like Bubba Wallace starting 27th, but once again, this is a track where you actually have to brake, and Bubba Wallace doesn't like to turn or brake, so the braking aspect throws him off my radar this week. Michael McDowell's teammate David Reagan's an interesting play starting 26th, but once again, that's right around the ceiling of this car. It likes to finish 25th. That one place differential point and a 25th place finish, I don't think mathematically is going to be enough at 5,600 to get it done, but it very well could be, because I'm just not seeing the place differential for a lot of these other drivers. The more sneaky play that people are starting to come around on is Matt Tifft. He's a little bit cheaper. He's also starting 32nd this weekend, but every week it seems that more and more people are trying to get on this play because they're seeing it as well. He's in the same equipment as McDowell and Reagan. He's starting 6 positions further back than them. I like it as your place differential play, but it's probably going to be high owned. The rest of the guys, your guess is as good as mine, including the 2 cars that didn't even qualify that are just in the field, in LaJoie and Cody Ware, because they wrecked in final practice and therefore didn't have a car ready to go for qualifying. So guys, I think I gave you the best rundown I could. I really wish I had somebody here to throw around some of these ideas with and to argue with, but you know, if you guys want to argue with any of my picks or throw down some discussion here or there, I will do my best to converse with you on the YouTube channel. So guys, once again, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Liehr will be back next week. Keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And guys, thanks as always for joining with us. Bye, y'all. Have a good one.